can't see us yet. I'm just waiting for all the sites to connect. You know.
Yeah.
You know how we do. All right. Looks like everything is connecting. Just waiting on Twitch. Yeah, Twitch is always a little bit slow connecting. It always holds us up from going fully live. I'm always like, everything else connects right away except for that.
Yeah, there's usually like a 10 or 15 seconds delay.
I think probably because it has probably the biggest buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Looks like we're all connected. So we will go live. Now people can see us. They can see the new layout too, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
let's go.
Yeah, we've got the new layout going where it's, Cyberpunk Red, the official rules. The character names are bigger with your individual videos now, so it has like a fresher vibe and look to it. And I'm just so excited that it says official Red rules. That's probably
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah, that's the coolest part is the official Red rules. So anybody listening or watching that, you read that right, you're hearing us right. We got an advanced copy of Cyberpunk Red from our Talsorian Games. They were cool enough to give us an advanced copy to use for our streams. And man, just so excited to get into it. So today we're having session 0, which we're calling and yeah, we have our 3 team members here. And yeah, you might recognize them from Team 2 when we were previously doing a Red 2020 hybrid game. But now we're officially into Red, and they have new characters, and that's why we're at Session 0, so we can go over all that great Lifepath stuff. But before I get into that, yeah, so we're in Red. We're officially in, like, we'll say, 2045-ish, 46-ish, like right after, things are rebuilding the city. There's still that red hue to the sky, but the nuclear fallout is pretty much done as far as killing people and fucking shit up. It's still nasty out there. There's still like get into buildings, like I said, the sky color, and the whole city's under construction for the most part. It's all still kind of getting revitalized and rebuilt, and like there's new life being brought back into the city. So that's kind of where we're at with Red. And yeah, not much more to say until we actually get into the actual session next week. But for now, let's at least go over the characters and kind of, their life path and background, and then we can discuss how they interact with each other. And just like before in the previous campaign we were doing, let me say it again. This is definitely adult content. We will be using cuss words and talking about fucking violence and sex and fucking everything you can think of, that comes with cyberpunk. It's just going to be real and raw, and yeah, so that's our little disclaimer. Don't watch if you're easily offended. This is definitely cyberpunk, and yeah, aside from that, we've got the core Red rules, as I said before. So we'll be pulling all the rules basically from the official Red core book as it is right now, keeping in mind that when it officially comes out, it could change a little bit. Our Talsorian Games did say this is kind of their official core Red rules beta version, because they reserve the right, obviously, as we're all testing it and they see what works and what doesn't, they're going to maybe change some things. But for now, we're going to follow these rules to the best of our ability. And if there's anything kind of lacking or missing, we might homebrew something. If I happen to homebrew something because something's missing or pull it from 2020, I'll mention that. Otherwise, we're going to follow all the fucking rules that we have in Red. So anybody watching or whatever, that's cool. Just know that. So yeah, let's see. Everybody's got their avatars here. That's really cool. Let's see. Hey, what's up, David? David Baker is watching. We got Heather. Heather from Team Spicy, which used to be Team 1. Heather was playing Stitch. She says, "What's up, Team Nameless?"
How's it going?
Hello.
Hey, Stitch.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, like instead of doing team 1, team 2 and being that generic, we actually came up with little names, little 4 letters. So this is team nameless, but you'll see it on all the videos and descriptions as team NMLS, but that stands for team nameless. And the other team is team spicy, which you'll see as team SPCY, but that's how we'll separate it. So if you're ever looking at youtube.com/Mulligan Live, or you're on the Twitch channel or anywhere else you see us streaming our live gameplay, the way to keep track of session 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and know that you're on the right storyline is look for the parentheses in the title or description where it'll tell you which team it is. So there's 2 teams, Team Spicy, Team Nameless. But all right, let's get into it. So yeah, I think everybody understands what's up. We're into red. I'm fucking excited. I guess let's Eric, and he's playing. Well, tell us about your character. Let's start off with the name and what role you're playing, and then just get into the life path. Let's get in as much detail as possible.
All right. My character is Cyrus Coupler Smith. He is going to be a tech, and so his main thing is going to be all about working on electronics, cyberware, robotics, vehicles. His backstory is that he grew up in Night City in the combat zone right around like a few years before the Night City Holocaust happened. So when that all went down, he was about maybe 10 to 11, and his family was luckily able to survive because they were that far into the zone. And they ended up all moving to a refugee city, like one of the reclaimed cities on the outskirts. And from there, he started tinkering around with whatever scrap he could find, from the leftover corporations down to military vehicles, and just working on it and reselling it. And he found out he was really good at it. Eventually, his reclaimed town, when things started calming down, one of these new corporations at first made it sound like there was a deal that the town was going to be incorporated into a city, and the corporation was going to help them build up. What happened was that the city was then bought out, and everyone was sort of kicked off the land, and everyone dispersed. So with his parents already passing away from fallout, like cancer and such, he decided to go back home to Night City and make his way there. And he's been working in his own shop, made friends with some gangers that keep him safe, but he does odd jobs for them, and he does some side work for corporations that keep him in supplies.
Nice.
So he's just trying to make a name for himself.
Nice. And did you come up with ideas for the corporation and stuff, or is that still open game once we get through each person's background?
I was waiting to get through each person's background and talk it over with you. They
Okay,
want to jump the gun on that.
Yeah, no problem.
Want to see what you had in mind too. See if we can incorporate it into the story later.
Okay, cool. What else do you have? Was there any friends, enemies, lovers, all that good stuff?
Honestly, when I was rolling him, he came out to be fairly jovial, but he had no real close attachments and didn't make too many enemies. And even the people he made enemies of, they were friends.
Nice.
So he's probably one of the nicest guys I've ever rolled.
That's cool. One thing I like about the red life path is not only the depth, like they do everything that you're familiar with, but then each role has their own like little life path stuff, which is cool. But
yes,
they kind of made that whole lover, enemy, friend sort of stuff a little bit different, a little more simplified, and a little more chance to actually not. And that kind of makes sense if you think about going into the red. A lot of fucking people died. A lot of people spread out. I don't know. It seems, like it's a tougher world. You're a little more alone when it comes to shit.
Yeah, the amount of relationships is definitely reduced, I feel.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I kind of dig that though, because I almost felt sometimes there was a lot of family sometimes, too many siblings, too many chances to have like 10 fucking brothers and sisters.
Yeah, the old rules, you could get up to like 10 siblings,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, that's a little weird.
But it kind of makes sense if you think
depends
about
on the family.
Yeah, cyberpunk being that high tech, low life, almost on the verge of that movie Idiocracy, if you will. Like you think, you think about high tech, low life, overbreeding, and all that shit. But like I said, I love what they're doing with Red. It seems more real, and it seems definitely more along that post-nuclear fallout, high tech, low life vibe. Like the rebuilding and shit. So I really dig it. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love what you did with Coupler, and we'll go over the possible corp that you get shit for? You said you basically get hired by, or you work for them, or they kind of like contract you to get things,
We
or
do I do services for them, so if they want me to find something, so I would work for them and they keep me supplied with materials. So it's a give and take relationship. Like if
okay.
I need to do something below the table, they'll come to me. Like if they want me to do corporate espionage, I guess, or reverse engineer something to competitors.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Yeah, I'll be excited to get into what possible corporation. And I've got a couple ideas, and we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, Daniel, your tell us about your character. Same way, the name, the role, and then get into the whole life path background, as much detail as you can come up with.
Sure. So yeah, I'm playing Alistair on Rio, which he took the kind of on Rio name as a moniker slash handle that means in Japanese vengeful or wrathful spirit. Much of his background, his parents were both corporate managers, kind of living the high life in one of the floating offshore cities until everything went sideways and they were betrayed. I haven't picked necessarily who. I wanted to talk it out and see if there was a way to tie that in, but much of he was kind of forced out of the floating offshore kind of high life into the low, abandoned areas, some of the, near the combat zone, kind of moving around in Night City. Just that's, where he gets a lot of his, programs. He's net runner, playing kind of a straightforward, not, just kind of moody, rash, headstrong, just, get out of my way. I'm here to accomplish what I need to accomplish. But yeah, as like Rob said, one of the things I really enjoy is the fact that, each role has their own life path, which is very different. So kind of gets you to, add some extra flavor. So like my guy's, because he was betrayed and his family is betrayed, he spends much of his time, kind of exposing other people that maybe are, out to, betray and backstab others.
Oh, nice.
Um, and he has his main clients, much like couplers, are other, corporate execs who kind of hire him for, black project work, try to get into, some systems that maybe they're a bit, sketched on trying to get into. But he also has the secret partner who might, he's never met, kind of get some information from time to time, but I'm a bit concerned he might be a rogue AI.
Nice.
So, kind of little concerning. And unfortunately, I also have a fixer who's been trying to get my services exclusively, and I've kind of been avoiding him. Not sure I want to be exclusive to anybody at this point, but that's where my guy's at.
Nice. Yeah, I love the individual life path for each role, and like how the Netrunner has some of that good shit in there. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
So, yeah, I mean, and like I said, that he was, he's also kind of just, he has no real friends, no enemies, he had no romances, kind of just kept to himself. Wasn't, once he was kind of bounced to Night City, he didn't really want to hang out with too many people, on the social aspect. Just wanted to get work done and try to maybe get some vengeance on the people or person, depending on, I haven't decided and figured we talk it out maybe here, who betrayed his family.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can figure out, exactly who that fixer is that wants them exclusive. We can figure out the company that typically kind of like hires them out and stuff, the same way with Coupler. We can work out those details after we hear from Raven. But describe, because this has the whole character building aspect of like your clothing and stuff, which I thought was real cool, like
Sure.
with the
Yeah.
designated funds, with fashion wear and things like that. So just let's go back to Coupler real quick. Describe what he typically wears, what he might wear into like fashion wear, cybernetic stuff. Like, describe him, the look.
For Coupler, he's very much that kind of engineer. He knows his clothes is gonna get dirty, like mechanic. So he's usually rocking leisure wear, like cargo pants, jumpsuits, probably like a white tank top. So that's where he's very casual. Like he maybe rocks some boots from Nomads, but for the most part, he's not going to be dressing up in nice suits or doing anything the high life way. He's just there to work. Maybe he'll put on some somewhat nicer clothes if he actually has to go talk to an academic somewhere or go look up some paperwork.
Okay, cool.
But he's pretty relaxed living.
Yeah, and I know that, we just find the closest thing of an avatar that can kind of represent the look. And, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but it looks like we might be having custom character things here, and we'll promote the hell out of that artist and stuff, which will be really cool once we get through all this. But for now, you guys actually, at least found some pictures online that slightly resemble what they might look like. Let me just see what you have here. Nice. So that's pretty close to what he's looking like, right?
Yeah, because he's definitely on the older age because he was about 10 in 2020. So he's about, what was that, 20 years more? So he's about his mid 30s, probably prematurely white haired, little grizzled, growing up in the sticks out there.
Yeah. All right, cool. And then on Ryo, is it on Ryo or on Ryu?
It's on Rio.
On
On Rio
Rio.
is more of how you say it.
Or I think Coupler
I'm going to be
said.
calling you Onion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I think Coupler in the group chat said he might end up calling you Onion.
Onion. I kind of like it.
But yeah, I like this. This is a kind of a crazy avatar picture you've got here.
Yeah, it's relatively close. I don't know if I envision him necessarily with a mohawk, but he does have
Yeah.
long, straight hair. Wears kind of an urban Flash type, setup. Similar to I imagine it very similar to what a lot of the 27/7 characters. They've been kind of showing these, jackets with some, maybe slight effects in them. It's a little more high life compared to maybe where he currently is, but it's kind of a remnant of where he's from. Kind of a little higher end clothes. Still wants to give that look of, doesn't want to be, too grungy as it were.
Yeah.
Or is that that?
He's a net runner, By the way,
net
Big
runner.
Val is watching, our old school friend from Florida. He says, "What's up, Big Val?"
I didn't catch that. You're kind of cracking out on my end.
Oh,
Was
You
it?
cut in and out a little bit, yeah.
oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I might have some issues with this, but yeah, Chuckles says, "What's up, Big Val?" Chuckles, our friend from Florida. I
Hello.
thought that was pretty cool. He's an old school friend. Used to run security for my bands back in the day. One of our touring band, D-Root, like we went on Warp Tour and went out and stuff. He was Chuckles the Dancing Bear. Like we'd go to different cities in Warp Tour and we'd pull up the RV in front of the venue at the end. So when the crowd is pouring out, he would be out there and we'd blast music and he would just like challenge people to a dance fight and he would dance like fucking Carlton from Fresh Prince and shit. It was
Fresh
ridiculous.
Prince.
And we had all this shit on video touring all over the country. We got back to Florida, had a big after party the day we pulled into town, had like, I don't know, probably a couple hundred people at the house. I don't even remember how many, but we watched the video like once or twice that night. We partied all night, went to bed, woke up the next day, and the camera with the tape in it was gone. Somebody jacked it.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah,
No,
so we had
Chuckles.
that whole experience gone. And I really wanted to.
Oh, your rocker boy days.
Yeah. I wanted the Chuckles the Dancing Bear footage. But anyways, okay. So-
But yeah, just one last thing. Like, I've got Kim skin fingernails, so like I can change colors, but I usually keep them black.
Nice.
And then also
Edgy.
he's got being a net runner, he has interface plugs and all that kind of stuff. But in Red, everything's net runners do is kind of also they're out and about. They're so they kind of need to be able to see the real world and the net. And
Right.
typically most net runners will run virtuality goggles, VR type goggles or AR goggles, what we'd probably call them currently. But he has replaced his eyes with virtuality kind of interface within his eyes, so he doesn't have glasses.
Oh,
He
awesome.
just has it on his cybernetics.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so it's not so obvious when he's hacking in and shit. He doesn't have to wear
He
the
doesn't have to wear
virtuality.
goggles all the time. It's
Yeah,
just part
that's
of his
cool.
eyes. So,
Nice.
Very cool. All right, cool. So let's
Watch out for those headshots.
yeah, let's move on to Raven. Big Val. Back in the days when we were doing all the touring, Valerie used to sell our merchandise at the table, but she used to like get in the mosh pits and stuff. I mean, she broke her ankle in one of the big mosh pits at Hard Rock Live, and we used to sell out that club with like thousands of people in the crowd. And her nickname by our dance squad and our family and our crowd was Big Val, taken after the metal group Pantera. I don't know if anyone's familiar, but their crew, they had a dude named Big Val, and he was like a real big dude. He was like their security and whatever, but that's how Val became Big Val. But anyways,
I lived up to that name.
Yeah, you did. Let's so yeah, let's move on to Valerie, who's also my beautiful wife. Anyone that didn't know.
Oh.
But yeah, she's playing Raven. Why don't you tell her name, her role, and then let's get. You can describe maybe her name, her role, and her look, and then we can get into the whole life path stuff.
Okay. Her name is actually Hope Watson, and she actually took the name Raven from her mom. And I'll get into how that happened. Her appearance, she has long black hair. She's about 5'4.5", almost 5'5", if she sits upright. But carrying all her weapons, she does have a humongous posture. And I have 2 cybernetic eyes, and I have a cybernetic leg, and it's my right leg. And I have a hidden holster in it. I have tech hair. I also have the, what is that skin called? Charisma skin?
Chem skin?
Chem skin.
Yeah. And then I have the shift text in my eyes. And then my typical look when I go out into an actual mission, I'll start from the waist down, it's my combat boots, because I still have a basic leg. I don't have my sexy leg yet. Haven't got the money for that. So I still have the basic leg, but I do have a hidden compartment. So when I go out, I do wear my combat boots, cargo pants, and I always custom slice it with a knife and just cut it so that way I can get to my hidden holster, which always has my nice pistol in there, my heavy pistol, and belt. And then I have that belt. I keep my other pistol on there, and then I typically wear a nice heavy shirt, tank top underneath, and then another shirt on top with my leather jacket. Everything I have is pretty much leather. I spend a good amount of money on my leather because that helps being a solo and rushing around.
With the exception of your armor flak jacket, your medium or whatever, you obviously when you go in combat you have that, but then you have all your black leather shit on over it and your hoodie and stuff. But go on.
Yeah, my hoodie. And then when I do carry my weapons, which I carry them very nicely coordinated on my body, I have a very heavy pistol, which I have it strapped onto my back. I lost you guys for a second. I don't know where you guys went.
Yeah, we're here.
There you guys are.
I think it was your very heavy pistol is in your holster on the side, right?
Yeah,
strapped to your back is your assault rifle.
My assault rifle. I had it up backwards. So everything is on bungees so that I can easily swing everything and just drop them, and I don't lose my weapons, but I don't have to move in action. They just kind of flow with my body as I go because I just keep moving. I don't hesitate. Just shoot, grab my weapon, what I'm going to do, and pinpoint it and go. With my eyesight, I do have smart, I can shoot from anywhere.
But slow down a little bit. I think you missed some stuff unless it cut out. Because how you described it to me when you first sent me your character breakdown was you said you had the heavy pistol on the leg, when going into combat. Yes. Going into combat, anyways. Your very heavy pistol on the holster, rifle strap around the back with a strap.
To the back.
And then shotgun.
I have my shotgun.
Yeah, you have a shotgun
bouncing on my shoulder,
strapped around the other side.
Yes.
Like a female Punisher is how you described it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So
everything is strapped on me.
I just didn't want to miss.
Strapped on.
Yeah, I just didn't want to miss that because I thought when you said that before, I thought that was pretty cool. So I wanted to make sure that was explained because I kind of bring. I can visually see that,
I definitely need to get new headsets. I think that's what's crackly, and I can barely hear you. I'm sorry, but yes,
he cuts
definitely.
out from time to time. I don't know why.
No, mine does it too. I started
okay.
noticing that I lose you guys too. That's probably why you're not hearing me sometimes.
Could be.
But yes, the Punisher. Yes, That was my description of it all. Because I want everything to stay on me, so I don't have to drop anything or lose anything or make an action. It's just on me, ready to go.
You don't have to take an action to switch weapons. So whether you need to do long range or close range, someone pops around, you can easily just drop and grab the next one, and it's strapped on. So like, that's cool.
Yeah, because my shotgun is just really close and personal. Grab that.
Yeah.
You know, I can, if things come up later, I can just attach the shotgun to your assault rifle. Wouldn't it be impossible?
Yeah,
that's true.
I am the tech.
But yeah, that was going into battle look and stuff. But what's your other? What were you saying?
And then my casual look, I typically wear a sexy black dress. It's very high cut. It has a split on the side of my right. My leg, actually my left leg, says that my skin changes, but I actually do have a tattoo on my leg. It's actually a story that was brought back down from my mom, from her mom, which was actually her foster mom, Solo. That they actually sent down stories, and what's on my leg is what the world used to look like. So none of us saw blue skies. So I have like blue skies, I have a tree, I have grass, I have a little bit of an ocean, and it all changes. So that's what's on my leg to keep the story alive, because it'll explain why I did that. So I have that on my leg. And then I have another little tattoo of her initials, DM on my heart with a little heart on it, just a little tiny one. And that's just for me.
Aww.
But yeah, so you have the sexy black dress to go out.
And you can see that. And then I actually have nice high heels. And then the heel is very nice and pointing. So if I ever have to kick anybody, my heels are deadly. And then I actually have another sexy dress, and it's red for casual wear. So anytime I have to go on missions, I can switch that out. And my hair, I can change it up and down. So when I go on missions,
you've got the tech hair.
Right. So when I go on missions that I can't use my guns or anything, I still have my hidden holster, and I still have that look that I can get away with my seduction.
Yeah.
This reminds me of somebody. I wonder who.
Well, yeah, let's get into your life path so this can kind of make sense. And anybody watching that maybe was watching Raven, the first Raven in Team 2, our 2020 Red hybrid, who now this Raven kind of took the nickname of her mom, who was a solo. It's all kind of making sense now, but let's get into this life path. Let's see exactly how that does make sense. How is Raven from the previous game your mom, and how did this all go down?
Well, right before her last mission, she had her big mission, and she found out she was pregnant, and it was right before the whole nuclear bomb went. So she was already gone. She left Night City. She was like, I'm pregnant. I'm not dealing with this whole being a solo in the city.
Wait, slow down. I think you skipped how she got pregnant. You're going really fast. You need to slow down, think about it, and tell.
Yeah, who survived that Black Widow situation?
Well, her last mission was with her ex. Well, her last mission was with one of her ex, and her only close friend was. So they had a little happy before he went back.
Went back where? You're not telling the damn story, woman.
I was gonna get to that, but you wanted me to jump to that first. But he was a lawyer that went back to Japan. If anybody knows Raven from the other story, it was Rock. He did it. He got Raven pregnant.
It was him.
The Rock is not coming back to the States for many reasons.
He doesn't know about it.
I think.
Yeah,
well, nobody knows that
that's
Raven
gonna
got
go
pregnant.
well.
But you don't. But say it. Finish. But you don't know who your dad is or whatever you said.
Yeah, I have no idea who the father is. I just know I haven't.
Yeah, your mom.
She never mentioned.
Your mom just told you that he was some big lawyer or whatever in Japan or something along those lines.
In Japan. Yeah, that's all I know. And she always used to speak Japanese around the house, so I learned that. So she ended up leaving and going to the deserts, to the reclaims area, and that's where I was born. Right when the whole entire nuclear bomb went off, she went into labor. So I was out there. She was pushing me out while everything was going to shit over here in Night City and all the other places. So I was way out there. Fast forward to about, I want to say 16. We got ambushed in our little camp. And throughout all the whole thing going on, throughout all that, before age 16, the minute I was able to learn how to walk, she was teaching me how to use a weapon, use anything in sight, because she always said the world is shit. You have to survive on your own. We were the only two. So she taught me from the minute I was able to walk all the way till I was 16, martial arts. She taught me how to shoot guns. She taught me how to use my femininity. She taught me everything she knew all the way up till I was 16. And 16, everything changed. On that evening after my 16th birthday, everybody went to bed. We had a good celebration, just us and it was a very tight, little tiny community. It wasn't a lot of us, but we're just little scrabblers that kind of just, we stayed in a little thing. We moved a little bit, but not too far from the last little camp, so we could still see if anybody came into our area. And we actually got bum rushed. We didn't see it coming. And my mom fought with these actual gang members. I forgot what they were called.
I don't think you established the name of the gang that attacked.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. And so they attacked all of us. My mother fought tooth and nail. And when I was fighting with them also, they threw off of a grenade. And when it went off, it blew up everything into our little area. And I went flying. When I went flying, some of the lights made me go blind. And then I lost my right leg. And then as I was going, one of the other guys came running to come finish me off. My mother, being the, powerful woman that she was, sacrificed herself and went in and jumped and took the bullet to the head. And then she landed on top of me, and then I just played dead. And as I was playing dead, he walked over and I just lay there, just held my breath, because she told me whenever worst case scenario, hold your breath. So I held my breath and just sat there, and he walked by. He's like, all right, the corporation want us to make sure we grab everything. Let's just grab everything. No, leave nothing. Let's go. And they ended up robbing us. They took everything. They took all our money, all our supplies, food, everything. They left us with nothing. So that's one of my enemies, is a corporation that I have no idea who it is. A faceless corporation.
Yeah, and we can.
So after all that,
what colors the gang had or something along those lines, so you have a little lead on that, but at least you played dead and overheard that this booster gang or whoever was doing the job was hired by a corp. That's pretty cool. But go on, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, we'll figure out some of those details that at least have a lead on
it. Right. So after all that happened to me, I end up getting patched up by whoever survived in the little camp that we had. So I was pretty messed up. I had no leg, no family, no eyesight. So a bunch of us got together and just hopped on back into Night City to try to make money. And we just begged on the side of the road. And Cy tried to do things. And my talents, I couldn't do anything with my talents, just being blah. I ended up making a friend. Her name was, actually, I still am friends with her. Her name is Lola. She's actually from the Willow Street Sisterhood. And they kind of took me in, cleaned me up, because they didn't want a female on the streets, which I didn't blame them. And they helped me, learn to feel my sights and learn with everything else, and just, not worry about not having a leg in it. But I was actually kind of depressed without having it, because I am trained killer, so to speak. I'm a trained fighter. So not having all that was frustrating. So I ended up going to the hospital and making arrangements, getting a couple of cybernetics done, which was my eyes and my legs, and finding how much everything cost, and ended up making a deal with the corporation. And then that's where I'm at with my job situation. I'm actually working for, oh my God, where did it go?
Yeah, so basically, for you to get the cybernetics and things that you wanted,
right, to actually be able to function.
Yeah, you basically took one of those sell your soul options
a little bit,
so you can get some more money. You basically sold yourself to this corporation, treat you like an expendable person, but at least it's a paycheck. At least you got, that advancement to get what you wanted.
Right.
And I
work at the combat zone, the corporation zone.
No, yeah, not the combat zone.
No, I broke up. I was reading something else while I was talking. Sorry. I was reading something.
Corporate. But yeah, I've got the image here. 20. It's on the stream, but that's the corporation. And what we did is we're using one of the neocorps that you can see on the R. Talsorian games website. I think they tweeted it or posted it a while back, but they listed at least a handful of neocorps since after the fourth corporate war. Corporations are the same. Some no longer exist. Some evolved into something different. In some cases, subsidiaries rose above the mains, and things have changed. But the one that you did a deal with was what is it? Zarafa International Technical Manufacturing. And their claim to fame is that giraffe thing, which is GRAF3, but I guess they call it a giraffe. It's that weird mech-looking robot thing. It's about 20 feet tall. It's just over 2 stories, but it's been used in the new construction that's had to take place in the city. It's been clutch in getting all the new construction done. This company, which is this origin, I guess, is based in the USSR. Was able to hook this up, and they've done a lot of deals with different corps and building contracts throughout the city, using these things and supplying to other construction companies and partners and stuff to rebuild the city. And I guess one of the kind of shady things about them they mention in this is, let's see, corps could buy a giraffe cheap and know they'd last for years. No one asked questions about how company founder Sokolov managed to ship cargo across the globe when bigger corps couldn't. So the need to clean up the destruction wrought by the Fourth Corporate War was too great, to question that. So obviously, there's some shady things behind this Neocorp in that they were able to get these things shipped worldwide and stuff when bigger corps couldn't. So they must have some shady ties or whatever. But that's their kind of thing. It's Zarafa International Technical Manufacturing. And they basically made this new construction bot as their big thing, but they deal with a lot of construction.
Yeah, so working with them, I'm a co-op Black Ops agent. I'm willing to bend the rules and the law. I get the job done. And on the other side, yeah, and on the other side, I take any job for the money. I'm pretty much, just need to survive. Money's my motivation. People are untrustworthy. I don't depend on anyone. My most prized possession, I do have a recording of my mom. I try not to listen to it much because it's hard to keep it powered. I have no romance. I'm pretty much a solo. I'm stable and serious. I'm not as much as Raven. Raven was more fun and flirty. I take everything I do very calculated, very serious, even down to my missions when I do stakeouts, when I'm even in my casual wear. But I do have a short fuse, so be careful of that.
It kind of makes sense with the whole, a little more serious and whatever to the point with a short fuse, because you have, your humanity has built up to the point where your empathy is borderline. You get a few more cybernetics, and you definitely have to get therapy. But in the meantime, it seems like you might have to schedule at least a week of therapy coming up soon just to balance out a little bit more.
Yeah, and my goal is to gain power and control of my own destiny, my own life. Raven wants to take back
for that one.
Well, because I sold my soul and I want to try to get it back. So I'm only, I was born when all that happened. So I'm pretty much between 22, 23 years old. So I'm still young.
Yeah. No, it sounds like, you did what you had to do to survive and get what you need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd still be with no eyes and no leg and no family to help you.
Yeah. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a step up to getting what I want, to fixing my life.
Yeah. And I think in the printout thing that you showed me, and it said, at least it's a steady paycheck. You sold your soul. You don't know
Yes.
what they've got on you to keep it. Obviously, there's numerous things they can do to keep you, but eventually you want to get out of it and have your own life. But in the meantime, it's like, fuck, at least you got a leg, you got your eyes, you can use your skills to make money. It sucks they treat you expendable, but whatever, it's a paycheck, And And it's all Black Ops stuff. And since I linked you up with the NeoCorp and it's Black Ops, we're gonna say that like when you do those missions, it's completely separate from the company. If you get arrested, you get killed, they know nothing the fuck about you. You're completely expendable. And when you do the gig, just like all the other ones they do within the company, they'll send out these expendable soldiers or solos or whoever they have, and they're responsible. Like, here's your paycheck gauged based on the job or whatever. But you're responsible. You hire who you want to work with you, whatever. Hence, maybe knowing Coupler and Onryo.
Onion.
Onion.
Tomato, tomato.
So you know what I mean? Maybe there's something there. And the fact that you have an anonymous employer, the fact that there's something there too, whether it's the same one or a different one. We've got to figure that out. We got to figure out a way that you guys at least know each other enough to where someone like Raven, who's alone in this world, would at least trust you two, and maybe missions. And you can count on her when you guys have gigs too. There's your muscle if you need extra help. Not to say that let me finish this. Not to say that everyone isn't muscle, because let's add that this new red hit point system is kind of cool too, in the sense that it's using will and body and all that or whatever. Not to get into details, but it's kind of cool that everyone's kind of balanced out as the same. Or averages around the same, depending on what they pick. And in this case, all you guys, nobody's super squishy or super tanky or whatever. It's really coming down to individual skill types and personality types, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's it's not reliant just on one stat. That like, if you take that one stat high, then you have high HP. If you take it low, you're squishy. Like, there's a couple stats that rely on what your ultimate hit points are. So like, it could be, pure muscle, or it could be, strength of will. Like, it just depends on how you want to kind of view your character. And, my guy's a net runner. So, I mean, he's, got a decent body to withstand that brain damage, but also has some other things that kind of help that out, and armor obviously is a big role in this too. So
when I was checking out everybody's characters and looking at the team as a whole and just thinking about it and the details and the life paths and whatever, I noticed that like everybody kind of like, and this is both teams, like everybody kind of has the same hit points, the same human level of whatever, even though it's different body, different stats and things, but everyone's kind of in there. But then everyone's so different with what skills they bring to the table and stuff. It's really cool. I really like what's happening with Red without getting.
Yeah.
I really like what you as a net runner are doing with your background, sir. That green screen.
Yeah.
The digital stuff behind you. I love that look.
Got some technology that lets me do that. So helps when. I'm also kind of in the IT realm in real life, so I can kind of do some of that cool stuff.
Oh yeah, looks cool.
And I can kind of switch it between different backgrounds depending on maybe what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love the red net run sort of look. Yeah, like when you enter the net, and you start doing your shit, like you can enter that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So back to all of you. Obviously, to summarize, we all know what Val does for a job. She gets these Black Op missions by this company that she's like has to do it. You know what I mean? And then obviously she can hire you guys to do it. When it comes to you guys in your regular jobs, how do you picture that working? I know we haven't defined the company yet, but how do you picture your main? You know what I mean?
My main job, main income?
Yeah, like your main source. Like how does it work?
As a group whole, or just individually?
Yeah, you, when you were picturing that life path that you were kind of playing, like how were you envisioning it? Like the company anonymously, or they call you in, they call you, you get a mail in, and you get things for them. Like how do you picture it working?
For Coupler is more of pretty much like for when the gang comes up and they need them to do something, they pretty much just show up at the shop. They trade words. Maybe they'll bring in a body that needs to have the cyberware stripped off it or something along those lines. But for the corporation, it's probably either a phone call or an email or meet here or have such and such product here kind of situations. More of their hands off.
Yeah, because
for the most part, Coupler just sort of works with whoever comes into his shop and whatever he salvages on his own. Sometimes he'll hire, if he has enough, he'll hire a team and go on adventures, trying to dig up old corporation electronics and stuff.
Raven, you didn't have any money left. I mean, it's pretty tough with the money and how it is starting off. I mean, you're starting off at ground zero for the most part, but I know Raven is lucky to stay in coffins or that sleeping bag inflatable setup on the streets, but she's a solo. What do you guys sleep? Like, you just mentioned you have a shop. How like, fill me in on everything.
For Coupler, it's probably just a shop he took over in the combat zone, a warehouse that no one was using, and the gang sort of just let him stay there because he's fixing them up when they need it, getting parts replaced. So that's the only way he stays in business. He doesn't make a whole lot on his own, but he gets to play with cyberware and collect the pieces he can.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking maybe what it could be, at least on that side, since you mentioned the gang or the corp. I was like, okay, maybe we could link the corp somehow. But I kind of want to keep the corp Raven's working with kind of the way that they work with Raven is the way they work, you know, the same way that it's kind of shady on how they even ship cargo and stuff. Like, I just want to keep the whole vibe like that with that NeoCorp. So I would rather not them mail you to do gigs or whatever. I would rather Raven hits you up to help when she gets these Black Ops. So what I want to do is maybe let's connect that booster gang. Let's make that booster gang like the Willow Sisterhood or something. If you don't have a particular location that you rolled that you're trying to target, we could make it that, and maybe there's something with there, you know.
Yeah, I had an idea that I think I joked about earlier of, like, that came to me when Raven told us about the Zephyr Corporation, of maybe she got hired to the job to sort of kidnap me as an asset for the company.
Oh yeah.
Sort of that thing where they pick up people they think have potential and get them working for the corporation whether they want to or not.
Yeah, I like that too. I like either or, you know. You could either be that, you know, the part of town that you work in and the gang that you work with is the Willow Sisterhood, and that's how you met Raven.
Oh yeah, I like that.
And you trust each other because you both have that common female gang thing that like family style thing that kind of brought you together, at least to work together. That's cool. But I really do like that other idea too. Like, you know, like this company, especially being in construction, you know, grabbing talented local techs and shit from around the city to come in and do whatever they did to Raven to them to make sure that they have to work for them, so to speak. The only problem with that is then it kind of locks you into that same sort of vibe with Raven without that nice cushy advancement and everything by choice. You know, like
I never said that she had to stay with the company. I could find.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll keep it with the
I
gang.
don't know.
Let's go to on Ryu and see what we can figure out there, and then see if we can connect it all, or if that so far I think the gang, the Willow Sisterhood with Coupler, might be the gang hookup with you, and that connects you to Raven. But let's see what's up with the Netrunner.
So yeah, I mean, most of my stuff, like, I just kind of envision, you know, it's mainly just kind of random corporate execs that, you know, need little black project work. They don't, you know, something that they can't do themselves. Like, you know, kind of that same sort of vibe of like, look, if we get caught doing this, you know, it's our head. You get caught, that's kind of your own problem, and we don't know who you are type thing. So it's kind of that same sort of like, you know, but it's not necessarily one corp. You know, part of my thing is I have a fixer or another client that's trying to get me exclusive. So I mean, we could do something with that.
No, I kind of wanted. When you mentioned that fixer thing, something popped into my head already. I kind of want to play that out with, and kind of take an angle with that. So let's keep that where that's at.
Sure, but yeah, my main thing is corporate execs who just use me for black project work. I get most of my programs from kind of abandoned city zones. So I mean, you know, I'm constantly kind of looking around for, you know, areas that maybe aren't populated, trying to find different programs that maybe were left behind, you know, in the past. You know, kind of hijack some of that stuff. You know, I just envision maybe not quite coffin, but certainly not a full apartment, just like, you know, what we would call a studio, maybe slightly even smaller, because all he just needs is mostly a bed and you know, connection to, you know, his cyber deck and other stuff that he can, you know, potentially use with his agent. You know,
yeah,
you know, it's kind of described as my bed's just covered in wires.
Yeah. What we probably will do with that, since, you know, you don't have we don't have the full extensive list of housing and shit like that with this core red rules that we were given. You know, we're a little bit limited, and we know that stuff like that is coming because we've seen mentions, you know? Like we know that there's more to come, and that's cool. But we are a little bit limited right there. So let's just assume, you know, like a studio apartment, if it's around that 1,500, 2020 mark sort of thing, like you definitely can't afford that right now with what you're making and what you're doing. So the only way that you're going to be able to live, you know, not coffin or, you know, how Raven's doing coffin or sleeping bag on the street, or maybe crashing at Coupler's warehouse out of desperation, like in between gigs or something. But maybe like hostel, like similar to like combat zone hostel sort of thing, like step up from coffin, but definitely step down from your own studio apartment. You can't afford that right now, you know? But that's not to say once, you know, you guys start doing gigs and you start making money, you can't get a better living situation, a safer one. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just mine is my workspace is listed as just, you know, filthy bed covered in wire. So he's not, you know, the cleanest. You know, he's just, you know, hook me up, and, you know, everything else is kind of to the wayside.
So you said he
lives in the digital world.
Yeah, you're a techie guy in real life, so it's pretty much just like your bedroom now, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a reason I got a green screen rather than the bed that sits behind it.
Right. So. Although that would have been some real aesthetics, you know, you would have
I'll have to get, like, I have wires like over here. I can just throw them all on the bed and, like, run it like all down. Okay. I can certainly take a picture of it and put it in the background.
Well, I really like making that gang that, you know, Coupler, the Willow sisterhood thing. There's something there. I think that's cool, and that gives us just a little thing. But with you on Ryu, and I'm not sure if I keep saying that right, but
it doesn't matter. On Ryu, on Rio, it's going to be like everything.
I got it now.
Star Wars, depending on who says it, is going to be how it's pronounced.
Yeah, but I got it now. It's on Rio. But but I don't necessarily want. I obviously don't want to connect you through that gang, you know.
No, I got actually a really good idea for that, for me and Henri to work together.
Yeah, because I also don't want to make the corp the same, like I said, because that's too, you know, you didn't sell yourself out like that. So I was thinking going more the
I'm still a freelancer.
You know, exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say with him. I mean, but you're Coupler's, you're a freelancer, but you're very little on the freelancer side. You're more like, when you do have the free time, it's to probably do a gig with Raven, because of the fact you've got free warehouse spot because you have to do shit for the gang. You know what I mean? So there's probably little paid gigs and things there when you're not doing shit with Raven as well. But I think you're definitely considered more of a freelancer. You're not locked into a contract with anybody. You can do whatever you want work-wise, and you can leave or do whatever you want. You know, free call her, come in tomorrow 6 a.m. She's got to fucking be there, you know?
All right.
But what was your? But before I get into that, you know, obviously I want to keep on Rio contract work as well. But what was your idea, Eric?
Well, for Coupler, his main focus is on robotics and like drone type technology. So all the cyberware stuff that he does, the basic tech, the cars, that's all just sort of to pay for his main priority. But the thing with the drones and all that, you need someone who can program, like the actual program them. So I would need a net runner to program. I can build the cases, but I need someone to actually be able to make them work. So I could easily have found Ryu as someone who can actually run programs to get those automated drone stuff to work by themselves without having to have a remote control all the time. So we could easily just like work together on projects for the corporation when they want an army of drones in their facility, or those black ops sort of, that black ops who wants a drone that carries a missile or something.
Yeah, my only problem.
Or a fixer who needs security drones.
Yeah. My only problem with diving into that fully, though, is because of what we have in the red rules when it comes to drones.
Oh, no, they're in the red rules.
And Demon and a net runner running it, and just the caliber of that, you know?
Yeah, it's a little maybe higher than I think starting characters, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
Don't you have faith in your own skills?
Well, yeah, but my point is
don't you have faith in program a demon?
Maybe, but I you know, the way the rules are kind of written, like the demon stuff, it gets, I think, a little high.
Right.
I think.
Well, not to mention it's very powerful too. Like I said, I was apprehensive at the custom skill within robotics and drones because of the power that comes behind that. You know, but you as a maker, your specific being in that is cool. But we've got to tame it down, and it's not just taking time to find material. it's got to be kind of level oriented somewhat. You can't just dive in and on Rio because he's going to he programs drones and things for you. You know what I mean? Because then that puts a fact in there that you have drones and stuff already working. You know what I mean? And it's like we need to, we need to tame that down.
For Cutler, it was never that he has the drones. These are all for the corporation, so he doesn't get to keep any.
Yeah.
Because he would vanish after you stole their property.
But why wouldn't you make one for yourself eventually or be able to get? I mean, there's just a lot to that.
Cost and maintenance.
Yeah, there's a lot to that though. That's why I don't know if that's too strong to jump into right away.
I mean, that could be something we do later. I mean, at some point that could be a story.
Yeah.
That comes up once we get to that, because I haven't really dug too deep into that version of, because that's
and it can also
a lot
be,
of
no, and they don't have there's not a lot, there's not a lot of options with that stuff. Anyways, it doesn't get so heavy
super
into
detailed,
that side of things. But maybe we can implement our own touch of homebrew there, in assumption that there might be levels to the robots and drones, like maybe the caliber, since your role level, everyone's starting at 4 with their sort of career skill or whatever as a maker. Like maybe there can be something there where it's like, starting off like, it's drones and robots and stuff, but it's very like, house appliance.
Yeah,
there's definitely levels.
Like you're not making like full robotic battle bots and drones that can carry a submachine gun over a fence and just attack a warehouse remotely from a distance already.
No, they're definitely very different levels. Like saying? One of them.
So let's do that.
Like even looking at the 2020 stuff, you're looking at like maybe small bug size level drones, not the big beast ones.
But even that, it's like be some level within the functionality is what I'm saying. So maybe now it's like Tinker Toy tool style appliance shit and robots versus like surveillance and weapon and spy equipment and like cool, like you're not of that caliber just yet. Like I don't want to just dive in, you know what I mean? Just in the same way I toned down Val. Remember when we were getting into martial arts and brawling and the auto fire, and I was like, well, let's spread things, let's try to be more skilled in other things, like give a little more personality to the character. Don't just dive in like, it'll be too encouraging to be a murder hobo or get away with murder, so to speak, and like we got to start at least on these levels. Not to say that we're baby stepping at all. I know when we did the 2020 Red Hybrid, we had a handful of missions. It got gradually harder and it got a little thicker as we went. And then, after that first campaign, we were going to fully be in, but then we were blessed with Red Official. Now we're into this. I don't want to baby step at all. We've already talked about the honeymoon's over. When we get into this, it's full on like, I want all players to even track their ammo. Like I was saying, like just have a little notepad next to you, so every time you're shooting a bullet, just make a mark. Just list your weapons or whatever you got and just make a mark so you can keep track of whether you use 10 on auto fire or each single shot, because you do have to reload. We are buying ammo now. There are more details and it's more real. It's going to be a little tougher. But in that same breath, I also don't want everyone starting with fucking amazing homebrew capabilities, in the sense that we made that robot drone skill up to fit with the maker style. Like I think it lacks some detail in the core that we've got right now, but I don't think we should make it full on. So anyways, like we all agree, it's more smaller level on the robotic drone thing. But I do like that as long as it's that, it makes total sense. Like you would totally know a Netrunner. You get the tools, you construct it and whatever, but somebody comes in to help program, also to help hack circuit boards and things or whatever, or to go to get things with you, And then through the gang, Raven, and that's kind of been your go-to muscle when you need someone that's really good with weapons while you and the Netrunner do your thing. And vice versa, because you've done that and you met through the gang or whatever. Raven's met on Rio through Coupler, and you've been able to call on them when you have gigs you have to do for your corp, and you need the help from a Netrunner or a tech,
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
And
certainly,
because I was gonna say I can definitely see me and Onryo, like Coupler and Onryo, going out to the waste of these old places and trying to find old tech and reuse it.
Yeah,
whether it be digital or mechanical.
Exactly, and Unreal likes going out there.
If we can find something, sell it or use it for ourselves, and then that's part of where we get some of our money. And if there's corporate jobs where they need us to either break in somewhere and maybe steal some technology or do some espionage that way.
Yeah, and I was thinking one of the kind of cool things that earned Raven's trust, since she's so alone in the world and whatever. When she first met you through the gang, one of the first things Coupler did for you was got you a chargeable hookup to that recording of your mom, so you don't have so you can listen to it whenever the hell you want, you know. And that really touched you and made you realize that he was cool, you know.
Yeah, Coupler's a nice guy. He's not like Dodger at all of the old days.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? That kind of would make reason why Raven all of a sudden would trust people, because her thing is kind of cold and calculated, didn't trust anyone. Hell, that's why she sold herself to the corp, is because she had no one in the world. She needed fucking eyes and a leg, and you know, she's just kind of cold and calculated a little bit. And that would kind of make sense why you might warm up on Ryu, because he totally fucking hooked up your recording from your mom and stuff, and you know, no one helps you like that in this world, you know, but he did.
Right.
That's kind of
that's good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And who knows, the other thing I'm looking forward to, you know, since your mom was Raven hooking up with her ex while he was in town doing that mission back in the day, right before the nuke bomb dropped. You know, she got pregnant 9 months, or had birth 9 months later with you, you know, left the city and did all that. What's kind of cool with that is you don't know about your dad and shit, but he was in Japan during all this. And then he was traveling after that, or who knows what, during the trail end of the Fourth Corporate War. He might still be alive. I mean, he would be in his, 40s, or no, I guess, he would be in his
probably 50s, 40s.
Yeah, late 40s or something, because I think he was young. He was young, like early 20s.
Yeah, he was like 20, so he would have been, about probably 42, I think.
Yeah, 40 something, 42? But that'd be kind of cool. So like, you've got a couple things, like at least within your life path, you want to eventually free yourself from this corporation. You're not sure if they've got like some fucked up shit in your cybernetics that could kill you, or tracking, or you know, they obviously don't have any hostages from your family or holding anything like that against you, because you have none, you don't know any. But but you eventually would like to get control of your own life and break free from that, and eventually maybe find your dad, which you know nothing about, don't even know how that would fucking happen, but those, at least you have those two kind of things going on with your character, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, she definitely has some interesting motivations.
Yeah. It's cool. And I like the dynamic of everything too. Like, Eric, I like how you made Coupler, I don't know, nicer, or just more, I don't know, I picture him more.
That was all the dice. Like
more techy. No, it just feels more tech, less fixer, you know?
Yeah.
I like it. It fits. And it's cool too, because I like it. It fits with the fucked up dynamic with Raven, with the whole selling your soul to the corp, and how she is being able to fix that recording, getting the power to it or whatever, like kind of opening up that, I don't know, it's kind of cool. And it definitely makes sense with working with your Netrunner, like how on Rio, you know, you guys work together, you needing the programming and things for the gigs that you have. It all makes sense. One thing I did not look up, and I don't know if you have it in front of you, I don't have my source book, but what part of town did it say the Willow Sisterhood typically ran out of? I don't remember. Was it the Corp area? No, that was the Juilliards.
I don't think it was. Yeah.
Well, anyways, we should look that up, and then that can kind of be maybe where your warehouse is, or we could just generically put it on the edge of the combat zone, edge of the city. So it's not full combat and, you know, dangerous, fucked up on that level, but on the edge. It's still rough, but at least near where their part of town is, maybe.
What's the name of the game?
The Willow Sisterhood.
Willow Sisterhood.
And who knows, when we did our the Cyberpunk Uncensored podcast episode, Eric, remember the 2077 book talks about the Moxies or Moxes or whatever, MOX, and that's kind of the new female gang. And the description of that gang, almost to a T, was like the Willow Sisterhood. So I'm almost wondering if the Willow Sisterhood's no more and it evolved into this, or that's what it became 40-something years later or whatever.
Maybe, because the way that this page just describes them as just trained assassins, all female.
Right.
They're not located anywhere.
Okay, well, then we can make it up.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're specific to any.
Well, we can do whatever, and let's just know this: when we get the official red, and whatever source books come with it, and whatever happens once we get expanded, Sisterhood is no more, and we can homebrew it in, because obviously Cyberpunk's cool with add more gangs. Fuck, we need more gangs. But if not, if it evolves into the Moxies or Moxes or whatever they're called, and that's kind of leading into 2077 from Red and whatever, we can change up the gang name and said they evolved from 2020 to this, and I don't know, whatever. But the idea here is that it's an all-female gang, and that's kind of how it helped Raven and shit, like how, you know, she kind of at least trusted them. It was all girls and they do what they do. But yeah, I guess let's make it. What part of town do you want to put this in, Coupler? Obviously, it can't be too nice, because of you having a warehouse that you said was abandoned or whatever, you know. So I'm thinking like edge of combat zone, but pick a part of town, whether Japantown, Chinatown, whatever's on the bottom there, or maybe out over near the university.
Whatever's left.
Well, that's the other thing is like we don't know how the map, you know.
We don't know what's left.
We don't know exactly what's going to change until we get the official Red. Because let's add, so any viewers know, like we do have the core Red rules. That's why right here it says official Red rules above me. But that's all we have. We have the rules. We don't have the expansion, all the source stuff. It didn't come with a map yet. And you know, when I talked to them, they were like, no, we're just giving you kind of the core rules that you can use and get into it, which is awesome. We fucking appreciate it. But that being said, we don't know how the map's going to change after that huge nuke went off. I mean, they moved the whole city, and we know based on that map we saw from 2077, it looks different. So
yeah,
for now,
I would say probably just
let's use
South Night City.
But what I was going to say
probably
is,
might be the...
yeah, let's do that outside of the main center of the city maybe. But what I was going to say is for now, we're using Red. We're in Red. I'm going to describe the aesthetics, the city, everything, the vibe. The living is going to be as much as Red as I can get it, knowing what I know about Red with my limited sources. But for map-wise, let's just use the Night City map until we can, you know, maybe get that 2077 map and alter it. Or when Red comes out, we see what happens. And then obviously we'll change the map, you know?
Yeah.
But for now, we need at least something. I want at least some buildings and streets and references. So for now, I'm just going to use what we have for Night City in that original source book.
Yeah, but I would say probably Coupler would be in South Night City because it is a port city, has a bunch of warehouses, remarkably violent.
Then
so he would have customers getting stuff replaced.
Yeah, then let's put it on, like, you know, the north.
It was left.
Then let's put it on the north side of South City, so it's like right where the combat zone is starting to, you know, like the east side of the combat zone, or what, east-south side of combat zone, north side of South Night City. So you're kind of on the edge of the combat zone. It can still get kind of sticky, and that makes sense. The gang's there. There might be some jobs and gigs and things that come up from that you've got to get involved with. Who knows? But that's where you're at. I like that. That's cool. And what about on Ryu? Where do you want the hostel you typically crash at?
You know, probably in the not too distant distance from that. Like, you know, he's, you know, kind of in that sort of same abandoned, but, you know, border on combat zone. That's why, you know, he's maybe a little beefier than, you know, a scrawny little, you know, kid. But
then let's put you in a hostel out there, you know, same area. Let's put you in South Night City. You know, and it would make sense too if you're living in Night City, you know, and you don't have a lot of family and friends or lovers or enemies or whatever, you know, you're just kind of yourself and living off your gigs and the people you work with are your friends and shit. Chances are you'd live in the same part of town so y'all can work together and hang out and shit, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, commuting is dangerous in Night City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll do that. We'll say, you know, you typically stay in a hostel. It's a step up from a coffin. It at least is big enough to, you know, work out of if you need to and shit. But yeah, that's where you are in South Night City. And then Raven, obviously, you know, you work out of the corporate zone. You're in the corporate center, which is probably looks a lot different now. But like I said, we'll use what we got. I'm going to obviously put some of these neocorps where I would just assume and make up that old ones don't exist anymore. We'll just kind of make Red our own until we can get what we need and we fill in the facts, you know, the gaps with facts. But yeah, so since you work at a corporate zone, I'm just going to say you typically just grab a coffin somewhere in Night City, downtown, somewhere in the corporate zone.
Yeah, I'm always on call.
What was that?
I'm always on call. I never know where they're going to call me.
Yeah, exactly. You stay nearby. You stay in Night City. You typically don't stay out in South City or where they are, but you go out there all the fucking time because that's where the Willow Sisterhood is, and that's your girl Lola. You still keep in touch with her. You obviously still work with Coupler and on Rio. So you go out there for that and for gigs and to work. But when you crash in your coffin or in your inflatable, you're on the streets of Night City. You stay over there. I like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, cool. Is there anything else you guys want to go over? In the chat, I'm gonna look at these other neocorps. I'm gonna look at the ones I think survived. I'm gonna look at these neo. I want to try to use as much neo as I can, so we keep up with what.
I know one was what Continental Foods.
Yeah, I like that one because they do the whole Oasis stations and stuff, and that might be kind of cool for programming with Onryu. Programming like food distribution and some stuff, and it has some elbow room for corrupt shit too when you look at that company, because it's like, they take pay, and certain parts of towns might not get food supply chains as other ones that pay more or whatever. I don't know. There's some shit there. But I would like to pick one of those neocorps and at least make, that the one that hits you up for gigs on the side. Because we know Coupler is, tech for hire, but works a lot with that gang. And then through that works with Raven and vice versa. Onryu works with Coupler because he's your net runner, but I want to give him his own as well. Just like you have the gang and Raven has the corp, let's give Onryu one of those neocorps, and that's the one that kind of hits you up sometimes to do program work or net running shit. You like that idea?
All right. Yeah, I do.
Well, look
I was
at
just
those.
looking at some of the.
I think there's 3 other ones that they listed in that post that aren't Zarifara, or what's the one that Val? What's that one? Yours?
There's Continental Brands. I think it's ROA.
Yeah, it's a hard.
They explain what it's called. It's that cybernetic thing, right?
And then Ziggurat, which does, I think, they're more of the software, I think. They work on the old net.
No, Zirafa?
Ziggurat.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's the programmers and stuff.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That might be the one for the Netrunner.
Yeah, that might make some sense.
Read that description. I don't have that in front of me. Just read it, Eric. Read that whole description, please.
So Ziggurat, the origin points in Night City. Following the data crash, it seemed like widespread computer networking would be impossible. Reconnecting the old net was impossible. Every attempt to reclaim it failed, and authorities were reluctant to build a new one. Enter Ziggurat, a neocorps with a new plan. Don't save the old net. Don't even build a new one. Instead, create local city nets and air gaps and firewalls to prevent a second data crash. Ziggurat began in Night City and moved quickly to other cities across North America, building city nets and overlaying them with community-driven data pool interfaces. The company not only provides network infrastructure, but the apps needed to use it: data crawlers, chat, and email programs, a suite for creating and editing contents of all types, and the Garden, the premier platform for sharing that content on the data pool. So essentially, they're every cable internet corporation possible.
Yeah, no, they were the answer and the guiding light to the new internet, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like, they saved the day when it comes to the independent data pools or whatever they created in replacement of what used to be the internet. But that sounds right up a fucking Netrunner's alley right there. I mean, that sounds perfect. I'm sure we can think of a niche within that or something that you do, because obviously you're not a level 9 that you're setting up databases and things with them, but maybe we can think of something cool and specific within that company that maybe you're responsible for doing, that they hit you up typically to do gigs to do. Maybe it's retrieve old software for them or do something from old wastelands or abandoned corpse or something. But what do you guys think? I mean, definitely.
I want the data term on such and such street.
I want that corp
technician
for him. But what do you think the details of you working for him could be? On Rio,
for purposes like that, he could be a technician, just going fixing the internet in places that get the installing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
maybe
wouldn't be too far fast. Too far.
I mean, both Coupler and I could do some of that too.
How about this? How about?
I work for ROA.
No.
That'd probably be more up his line.
No. You're, like I said, you've got the gang right now, and then you're independent. I don't want to use up all neocorps on this team. You've got a couple of them,
share?
And you've got the gang. But so here's what I think with Onryu is, you get sent out by what was the company? Ziggurat?
It's called Ziggurat.
Ziggurat. So you get sent out by them to go, like Coupler was saying, to fix different independent databases when something is wrong or not working there, which means you might arrive and it could be as simple as you got to log in and clear out a virus that was left by someone who hacked it recently, or which means you got to beat their virus or cloak or things. Maybe there's something to that, but you also might show up and maybe a gang fucking took over the something. You know what I mean? So like it could be anything.
Yeah.
But when shit goes down or isn't working, you're the repair dude that goes out. But it's not always just like a digital.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Any other ideas to intermix or anything coming to mind as we were talking about all this shit?
We never established what booster gang was hired that wiped out my family.
What I'd like to do with that is maybe think of like a couple colors that you saw with it, but you're not sure what gang it is. You know, there's so many fucking gangs, and like you did meet the Willow Sisterhood, but maybe there's a couple colors,
right?
And we can just make that up now, and then in the future we can define that, because that might be fun if one day you run into someone wearing those colors, you know, and you're like, wait a minute, you know?
Yeah.
Could come into play. Like for instance, you know, you were a teenager, you're out in the wastelands, that's all you knew was out there, you weren't in the city, so it's even if a gang showed up, it's not like you would know who they are, but you did hear them say they were hired by a corp. You don't know what corp, you don't know what gang, but you did notice that they were all wearing the same fucking color. You know, something like that I think is realistic.
Yeah, I'm gonna say brown, or no, orange. Where'd everybody go?
No, we're here.
No, we're here.
I'm
Sorry.
here.
I was just checking out the chat. I see just different people chiming in. Teddy says he likes stuff like the Bozos from 2020. That's so funny. Teddy, that's one of my favorites too. Eric suggested that a while back as an option that we ended up rolling for with one of the teams, and they got stalked. Well, one of the girls was getting stalked by the Bozos. I love that gang.
The Bozos are great.
Yeah, and make sure you guys listening, you're mentioning like the gangs, and you know, Cowboys might check that out. I hope some of these gangs make it to red. Yeah, I hope a lot make it to red, but I'm also excited. Check out Cyberpunk Uncensored. We did an episode. It's a podcast we run, but I also did a video on this channel on the Mulligan Live YouTube. You'll see it. It says gangs of 2020 through red up to 2077. And in the 2077 book, there's some developments in the gang community, like different gangs that made it, some that weren't even mentioned, some that, you know, some things like the Nomads that evolved into a gang went from like what now they're dominating transportation in red, but in 2077 it's like transportation's back, the Nomads aren't needed, they kind of turned into the gang life. So there's some crazy shit, but anybody watching that loves cyberpunk gangs, check out that episode on the Cyberpunk Uncensored podcast or the video on my channel from that podcast. It's really cool. Lots of good info there. But yeah, I think for now, like what color did you see them all wearing? What do you think?
I said
orange.
Orange.
Orange? Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, you noticed they were all wearing orange. Who suggested originally?
What was
Say
that?
it again, you cut out.
Who suggested?
You're still cutting out.
Oh, got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was saying, who suggested orange originally?
I did.
Yeah, you saw people wearing orange. My point with that is I wanted you to think of it, or just to come up from the chat or something, that it's random, and then we can attach that to something when red comes out, or source books, or make up our own gang that fits that. I kind of didn't want to pull it from something in particular because I didn't want to kind of metagame that at all.
No, I just said orange.
I want to keep that open. Yeah, no, I like that, and it's realistic. You have no fucking idea who that is. None of us do. You just know that you saw orange. They were hired by a corp. That's what killed your mom. You know, that's what took your eyes and your leg. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Anything else? Is there anything else that we didn't cover, or anything that comes to mind? I think we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think, you know,
we just haven't delved into the corp who supplies coupler yet. That's only one.
The corp that supplies coupler?
Yeah, his other connection. So that's the only one we're missing right now.
Oh, okay. What is it? What do you mean?
But we haven't figured out who it is, or if you want to bring that up later.
Yeah, no. No. Fill me in though. What was the that part of Lifepath or whatever? What's that? Just tell me about that.
Oh, for coupler, that is.
Tell me that section, or read that about.
When I'm rolling the tech life path, there was who supplies him. Corporate execs supply you with stuff in exchange for your services.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So.
It's very similar to the wording that mine is, which is corporate execs are kind of
Yeah.
your
No,
my
exactly.
main.
Yeah. So, well, going back to the
But my
whole
point is,
robots and stuff, like I was gonna say, Coupler could go and just do maintenance repair for their defenses, even though he's not making his own. He's still working on that skill, so he's actually still learning. But he can't make his own yet. But he can fix theirs, even though he can't produce them himself.
No, I don't like that. And plus, I don't want to, both you guys to be separate corpse repair guys or whatever, Maybe just something different than on Rio.
Well, they could
And it would be cool.
send
It'd
him
be cool to
cyberware
grab
parts to
it'd be
install.
It'd be cool to grab
Or
a corp that survived through too. Not make it a Neo, make it a surviving one, one that made it, but not something so huge, obviously. But
well,
it'd be cool if it was something with,
well, we can do
something
weapons.
Well, no, see, I didn't want it to make it full weapons or war robots or defenses like.
Well, I was gonna say we could do weapons, cars.
See, I was gonna say
basic
maybe it was something
electronics.
Maybe something to do with, who was the communication company back in the day? I can't remember the fucking name. I can look it up though. But I was thinking something along the lines of this. And if it's not a communication company, maybe travel or something along the lines of a company that was big that no longer has that, tech in the system because like communications are down, obviously, but they're still surviving with the existing, like, cell phones, the ones that are left can still work with existing satellite or what is, but there's no new ones being made. But maybe, and if it's not communication, a different thing like that, like I said, this is just for sake of conversation, but I'm saying maybe it's something like that where you're hired to scavenge or get, circuit boards, like a component for it, so you're not fully like combat robots and weapons and badass shit like that. It's more.
Well, we could do just basic trucks
more,
and stuff like that.
Well, what I'm saying is instead of full things, more component based. So whatever company you work for, like, you're sent out to get circuit boards that they need and then this that they need or whatever, but it's not working on the robot or working on the vehicle or working on the weapon.
I mean, I'm looking through the
kind of like a starter
2077
position
book, just to, for things that at least in 2077, there's there's the big ones like Kuroshi or Kendachi and obviously Arasaka and Militech. There's one that's called Zetatech.
What's
that?
Zetatech's been around.
Yeah, so it said once a relatively small company headquartered in Cupertino, Zetatech has always maintained a strong presence in Night City, specializing in computer hardware, software, and wetware design. The company was among the main providers of neural processors, microchips, and robotics on the American market.
Okay.
I could read on if you like.
Well, I like. Yeah. At least that name's it mentions robotics too, so that might be able to work. And keep in mind, this is just starter. And keep in mind, this is only starter. You can totally end up working, taking gigs for like a weapon company or something bigger or something cooler or whatever, adjective we want to use here. But this is just to get started, and I'm just trying to make things kind of baseline realistic in gigs and stuff. So, you know what I mean? With the exception of Raven, who's doing some like sold her soul to a corp assassin shit. It is kind of crazier story in that sense, but she chose to give up herself like that to do all that. But on everyone else's sense, I love the fact that on Rio, goes out to do repairs, and that could be chaotic, but it's kind of a normal job, at least at face value. And I would love to do the same thing with Coupler, where it's not like, you work for a badass robotics or weapons company or cyber, but it's more like, you're getting circuit boards or a part for this or that, and it's that company that does tech and robotics, whatever. But when you go to get that, that's not to say that when you go and get that circuit board, you go to do it, it's not a sticky situation, or it leads to a bigger picture.
Reading further into this, it just says in the last 30 years, Zetatech has diversified their product range and invested heavily in avionics research and manufacturing to become one of the major players in the transportation sector. Their Aerodyne gunships and security combat and utility drones are currently their most recognizable products, used widely by all mega corporations.
There you go.
Well, Rob, I was going to say, since he does cyberware too on the street level, he could easily, they just send him like crates of, you need to fix get all these chips maintenance, and he keeps a few for himself. And that's all he is. He just works on the cyberware and then gets it out to the street developers and stuff.
No, but
So he just works. He's a small cog in the big machine.
I don't like
Yeah,
that.
he's not
but
getting
I don't
like full
that
drones.
because-
He's getting boards.
But let me tell you why I don't like that, because then it becomes a non-played action where you're just getting sent boxes of stuff where like you roll, did you fix it? Okay, cool. Now you get free shit, and you're just going to be getting free shit every time you get that gig, which really isn't a gig. I like better that you're hired to go out.
No.
That you get hired to go get circuit boards and that box of chips off some abandoned truck that they know broke down on some highway 15 years ago, or yeah, like I'd rather keep it.
I'm just saying that's part of his job with them. That's the exchange of services. Sometimes it's they're going out. Sometimes it's just like we just need these chips.
Yeah, there you go. No, I like that. Maybe once in a while they just send you something and like you got to fix it.
Yeah, it's like that's just his relationship of they send him stuff, he does stuff for him.
Do me a favor and just write that. What was that company name?
It's called Zetatech.
So everybody works for a Z company, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, like so that's kind of interesting.
Everybody's corp starts with a Z. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, just make sure you write that in your character sheet, Eric. Under couplers, just so I have that reference or whatever, because like I go and peek at everybody's character sheet, get the Lifepath, make sure I'm getting a better picture of all this. I'm gonna recap this video over the days. It just helps, obviously, as a GM, build a better campaign. You know what I mean? I can incorporate some of these things in or plan ahead on certain things, so I dig it. But I think that's awesome. Everybody's got their corp, Coupler with the gang hookup, and Raven with the selling her soul to the corp, got her cybernetics, cool. All these things are already fucking churning in my mind with ideas and cool little twists and story ideas. I think it's really cool. And I think it's cool how we all, constructed how you guys all know each other. It feels organic in description.
Which is, I mean, to be clear, part of that is I think by design, because the way they do the life pass help that a lot, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
So.
No, exactly. No, like I said, I could not be happier with Red, the official Red rules, and we only got we got a good chunk of it. Don't get me wrong, it covers a lot, and we can play this, and it's going to be way better than what we were doing.
Have,
but
the
but
nice
I do feel like there's
mechanics.
but I do feel like, but not even that, because even within that there's mentions of things. So like what I was saying is, I love the fact that we have this core book and stuff, but like I don't know, there's just there's so much more to come. I'm excited with what we have, and we'll make it work. But there's a lot that I'm excited to see what it develops and what we can do,
Yeah, I'm
they have a good
super
foundation.
excited for it. I think they've done a great job compared to 2020, and then moving it to obviously I'm a little bit biased because the 2020 rules for like net running, which is something that's always interested me since even Netrunner, the card game, way back when I was a kid in the 1990s. They made the rules now where it's like net running can be done without like taking over the whole game.
Right.
And it's like they've tightened and made it even more fast, as far as like
exactly. And I think what's cool is like we can kind of say this because it's in the Jumpstart kit is, just building the whole thing less like a dungeon crawl and more like that elevator, and just streamlining the meat space versus net. Just what's capable in it is so streamlined, and then it keeps you within the party, so you're not completely separated like in 2020. And then just to assure everyone watching, you will not be disappointed with Red. They definitely expand on programs and things, and the Netrunner, there's a lot fucking more to it. I know people were like, oh, they expanded on that in the Red Jumpstart kit, but there's only this and this, and like, no, they expanded on it enough to give you a taste, but let me tell you, there is so much more to it in what we have in the official Red. Everyone watching, like, if you like Netrunners, you're excited to see that, like, you're going to be very excited when you see it. It's really cool.
Yes, very much so. It's barely a taste. It's like,
right,
in the Jumpstart kit versus what what's coming.
And what they did with solos, like Val, what they did, like what you're able to do with Raven, like taking the role points and the subcategories and stuff. And I can mention that, we're going to be playing it out without going into detail, but if you go to the R. Talsorian Games website on their blog, Pondsmith mentions some of those details, but you get your main character role skill or whatever, your combat sense, and those points get to be delegated into subcategories at the beginning of each combat. So you get to get bonuses and different things, whether it be damages or attack or avoiding damages or whatever. It's so cool. I feel like they took some crunchiness and depth out of sections that were too much, and then they added depth and crunchiness to parts where it's really appreciated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it fills it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
small
really-
little details really matter.
Yeah, I fucking love it. But I think we got it, guys. I think we're set with our session 0. I think we know what's up with Team Nameless. Anybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like the video, you share it. Please go to youtube.com/mulliganlive and subscribe, like, and share the videos. We're really trying to build up our channel. We're trying to build up the community. So please join the Cyberpunk Uncensored group on Facebook, like the official fan page, follow the account on Instagram, tune into the podcast. Just give us some love and support. We really appreciate it, and we'll keep streaming the games live. We'll keep making episodes of the podcast. We'll just keep trying to create more and more Cyberpunk content, and we'll try to build up the community as much as possible. So just help us out if you can. We really appreciate that. Any last words, guys? And lady, what's up?
I think
I can't wait to
we're
play.
good. I can't wait
I
until
look
we
forward
start.
to it.
Hell yeah. All right, I think that's it. I'm excited too. We're all excited. We'll do session 1 next week. Hopefully we can do it. We're all good for Tuesdays, 6 p.m. So anybody watching, tune back into the live stream next Tuesday, 6 p.m. And yeah, you'll see the official session 1 of Cyberpunk Red. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Take care.
See you later.
All right, everyone.